Curtis Jackson made his rap name 50 Cent as a metaphor for change, which is exactly what Baylor football needs. They entered the summer with 2 coins totaling 50 cents, and they got one of them in return. Or you could say they have their quarterback. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And if you are still here after that great dad joke of mine to open the show, it is Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. Today we're brought to you by FanDuel and in part by me, Cam Stewart, your host of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate you guys. Big news coming out last night with the Baylor Bears finally naming their starting quarterback. We're going to tell you what that means for the team and what it means for transfer DeQuan Finn. We're also going to look at the incumbent or the backup, and that is Sawyer Robertson and what that will mean for him and as well the Baylor football program going forward. And also, not to be outdone yesterday by the DeQuan Finn news, the Fudge Football Operations Center, I think I got most of that in there, was opened up, and it looks just tremendous. We got a sneak peek inside that. That's coming up later in the show. Yeah, if you could follow that metaphor from the beginning, Baylor has their quarterback. It's something we've speculated about for months and months and months. And in reality, it was who we thought it was going to be, most of us, all along. And that was Toledo transfer DeQuan Finn. Finn gets named the starting job. Matt Zenitz breaks the news of 247 and CBS. Matt Zenitz breaking the news that it looks like Baylor's going to go with DeQuan Finn. No official word at time of recording from Dave Aranda, but Dave did say on Saturday that we want to have an answer prior to Monday. We get it on Monday, which is not prior to Monday, by the way. So a big day for the Bears. Also the return of the smock. If you're watching on YouTube, I found it. It was like deep in my closet. I had to move and I finally found it. So hopefully that will be coming back more. But DeQuan Finn is the guy. That's who we thought it was going to be. That was kind of the big fish in the transfer portal. I think there were a couple of guys that Baylor picked up in that winter transfer portal that are a group of 5 guys who I think are going to make a big impact on the team this year. Ashton Hawkins, the wide receiver, being one. Obviously, he's on the Blitnikoff Award watch list, the preseason watch list. Kendrick Simpkins, I think, is one of those guys from Western Kentucky. The safety, Jaquez Evans, the edge rusher from Western Kentucky, if he can get back to 100% health. And, of course, the big one was DeQuan Finn, who was the MAC Player of the Year, also led Toledo to the MAC Championship in 2022. A guy who is an electrifying watch at the quarterback position. I mean, you want to talk about dual threat, look no further than DeQuan Finn. In fact, we did hear Gary Patterson, who was coaching with the staff in the spring, that DeQuan Finn reminded him a lot of Trevon Boykin. And I will keep using that comparison until we see anything different, because that's going to hype you up. I mean, if he is, half the player that DeQuan Finn, if DeQuan Finn was half the player Trevon Boykin was in 2014, there is success coming to Baylor very soon, and it will not be like last year. But you look at the tape and you see where the comparison's coming from. Obviously, Boykin was outstanding. I mean, he was top 6 in the Heisman Trophy voting in that year. But you watch DeQuan Finn's tape, and there is a lot of that. There's some deep ball touch passes, and there's a lot of getting outside the pocket, whether designed or not. And what I was surprised by in his time at Toledo is there were a lot of design runs. I think we usually see that nowadays for more of the Gary Bohannon types, the quarterbacks who do have legs and speed, but can also run guys over, because you find that guy more durable, obviously, when they're not taking as many hits in practice. These more durable guys can take hits in the game, so they dial up some more design runs. But you look at the tape from DeQuan Finn, not the biggest guy in the world, but he gets a lot of design runs at Toledo, and I'm wondering if we will see more of that this year, if we'll see some RPO. But actually, Travis Roeder had a really good, I thought, assessment of DeQuan Finn after Finn was named the starter. And it had a lot of points that I had kind of thought myself, which I don't say that to take away from Travis. It just makes me really happy because Travis is really, really smart about football. So sometimes when we have the same opinions on things, I get really excited. But he's talking about at Toledo, they were really good at running the ball. And that's what Baylor was not good at last year. So it is a bit of a difference there to the heavy run and how that looks different. That was in one tweet about this Baylor offense and how they need to establish the run in order for DeQuan Finn to be DeQuan Finn. But he says he's truly an elite scrambler, Finn is. He's going to be good on design runs and has a good deep ball. But his main question, Travis's main question, is how efficient he can be as a base down passer. It's a good football head term. Can he consistently complete the small things, right? The slants, the hitches, the comebacks, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, those plays, not getting out of the pocket on 3rd and 4. We know he can do that. But that is going to be a big question. And it's not something you see on the highlight tapes. And in fact, when you do see the highlight tapes, there are some big and what end up being big plays in there, but he throws off his back foot a lot. Shows up in the tape, so it ends up being good plays in the highlights. But I've noticed that, and I've seen some cuts from practice where he's doing it again, and he's going to be under a lot of pressure this year. I don't know that there's anything that we have seen that we can point to that says, oh, this offensive line is way better than last year. And this is not an episode to dump on the offensive line. I do that enough. But he is going to be under duress a lot. And I think that has to come into play with the decision that they made to go with DeQuan Finn. He keeps plays alive. That is what makes him such a star quarterback. That's what made him the player of the year in the MAC. You know, it's not for 5-step drops, sitting back in the pocket and delivering a dart. Sometimes he can do that. But where he really excels is extending a play. And Baylor hasn't had that in a while. Gary Bohannon, a little bit. Gary was really more of a designed runner and a short yardage runner. He wasn't a guy that was running around in the pocket, scrambling and making something out of nothing. You know, he wasn't that. Seth Russell, great athlete, only a little bit of that because of the way that offense was designed. We really haven't seen an elite guy like that since RG3. And I'm not saying DeQuan Finn is RG3, don't get me wrong, but that is something that Baylor hasn't really had. They had a little bit with Charlie Brewer. I'll give Charlie Brewer some credit there. But a guy who can extend the play and is an 11th guy you have to defend being the quarterback and getting out of the pocket. And a guy you might even need to put a shadow on defensively. DeQuan Finn is that. He is very much that. And you guys can sit back there and talk about how much you hated the Jeff Grimes offense all you want. But if they had someone like that, it would have been a different story. For a receiver group that had trouble getting separation the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons even, they wasn't great at it in 2021, that is a guy you can use. And I think that has to factor into the decision here because we're going to talk about Sawyer Robertson in a minute, but DeQuan Finn is truly elite at that, at making something out of nothing, and not just against Norfolk State like you see in the highlights on YouTube. He's doing it against Ohio State. He did it against Notre Dame. He is legit at extending plays. And Baylor is going to need a lot of that this year. A lot of it. And so if they're both equal as passers or deep ball throwers, but one of them can handle the duress a lot better and give you some positive plays out of what look like negative plays, that guy is going to get the upper hand. And that, I think, is a big reason why DeQuan Finn is the starting quarterback for the Baylor Bears. But what does it mean for our pal Sawyer Robertson? And what does that mean for the team going forward? We're going to talk about that in a minute here on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Ibotta. I know you guys are on Instagram this time of year, and you're seeing these glorious, beautiful vacations that all your friends are going on, and you're jealous. So you want to save up. You want to get to that next vacation, that dream vacation of yours, but you're dreading the cost. Ibotta can get you cash back on all of your purchases. So you can spend more time making your memories and less time dreaming about them or scrolling through them on Instagram. Ibotta is a free app that helps you earn cash back every time you shop. So you can earn hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, toys, things you buy all the time, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns over $250 per year. That could cover a cost of a shopping trip or a good trip, a good deal on a plane ride, so many things, or even a fancy dinner. Take your significant other out. Let's get some fancy dinner. You can get that by saving on over 2,400 brands and over 1,000 retailers, places like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, so much more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. So just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app, start earning your cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. So it's a great day for DeQuan Finn. Probably not as much fun for Sawyer Robertson. Sawyer comes in now to his second year at Baylor as the backup quarterback, and I think he probably would have fancied his chances of being the starter with how long this thing dragged out and, the confidence he must be feeling with his second year in the offense. And he is relegated to the clipboard once again. And what does that mean for Sawyer Robertson? Because I've had a lot of people, I actually have a lot of people, that's like more than 3, reach out to me yesterday asking, oh boy, Sawyer Robertson going to transfer? And I'm like, guys, it's not like NFL training camp when, someone gets hurt in the third preseason game and you just go and get someone's fourth quarterback. That's not how it works in college, even in this transfer portal era. Okay. So no, he's not going to transfer between now and the beginning of the season. Could it happen at the end of the season? Maybe, but I would also say unlikely because you got DeQuan Finn for 1 year. Sawyer Robertson would then be going into year 3 at Baylor and would have learned under 2 very different quarterbacks and 2 very different offensive systems. And I think that's an advantage to him going into year 3 because then you've got a lot of youth after that. I don't know who they're going to go and get in the portal. If they go and get another player like a DeQuan Finn in the transfer portal, that would probably spell the end for Sawyer Robertson. But as you look at it right now, the other guys you would have would be Nate Bennett, who would be only in his second year on campus, and true freshman Edward Griffin. So that's what you would be looking at if you're looking at next year for Sawyer Robertson. One thing that I didn't really buy into in this quarterback battle was, oh, well, if Sawyer's going to be the quarterback, Baylor's in a lot of trouble. Never bought into that. Because as I said all along, if Sawyer Robertson beat out DeQuan Finn for the starting quarterback position, that would mean that he beat him out. Because DeQuan Finn does not stink, okay? I know you might think that because he's from Group of 5. He does not stink. He was one of the best quarterbacks on the market in terms of the transfer portal this year. Was he Dylan Gabriel? No. Or the kid from UCLA? No. But he was one of the most productive quarterbacks on the market. In terms of what Baylor could get from the transfer portal, he was damn near the top, okay? So if Sawyer Robertson ended up getting the starting job, that would mean that he really impressed in spring ball and into fall camp. He did not, but I think it's worth noting that it's 12 days at the time of recording, 12 days before the start of the football season, the first game anyway, and they only just now named a starting quarterback. I think Sawyer Robertson fits into the system very well. And behind a good offensive line where you don't need as much of a scrambler, I think he can be really successful. Because again, he reminds me a lot of those Baylor guys in the Bryles offense. You know what? I see some Bryce Petty there. I see some Nick Florence and some Seth Russell there. I really do. And that's why I was so surprised that he was playing in a wide zone offense last year. And that's why he looked, rather limited in the first few games of the season when he got some time versus how he looked in that West Virginia game when he was on the money the whole night. So Sawyer Robertson, I think, is going to be following in some of those great Baylor quarterbacks' footsteps in terms of waiting their turn. Nick Florence waited his turn and had one of the best seasons in Baylor football history. Bryce Petty, yeah, that guy really waited his turn. You ever heard of a gray shirt? No one's heard of that. Bryce Petty had that as part of waiting his turn, red shirt and a gray shirt, and became one of the best quarterbacks in Baylor football history. Seth Russell waited his turn. Gary Bohannon waited his turn. And these guys all had success. It's not something you see a lot in college football anymore with the NIL era and the transfer portal era. But there are enough stories still out there of guys who waited and got their turn and made the most of it. I'll look 85 miles to the north. Max Duggan played his freshman year, then sparingly the next 2 years, and Chandler Morris took his job. Duggan takes it back and has a Heisman finalist of a season, right? That's just one example. I mean, Arch Manning is waiting his turn down at UT. I think he's going to be pretty successful. So it still happens in college football, and I think Sawyer Robertson could be another in a long line of quarterbacks at Baylor who have done that. And lest we forget, he is one of the highest rated recruits Baylor's ever gotten. Now, obviously, they got him out of the portal from Mississippi State, but in terms of that rating as a high school kid, 4-star, this style of offense, that is a good sign going forward. And again, I know a lot of sports fans in general, not just college football fans, are not patient these days, especially at the quarterback position. We see it so much in the NFL. People have already given up on Bryce Young. It's been 1 year. The 2021 draft class, 3 or 4 of those guys have been, the quarterbacks have been traded before the end of their first contract. There's not a lot of patience in sports nor around that position. But we're talking about a guy who had very limited snaps at Mississippi State, had only played in this spread air raid style of offense, goes to a wide zone for a year, gets kind of thrown into the fire a little bit. And now he's got that experience under his belt. He's got games under his belt at the college Power 5 level that he didn't really get at Mississippi State. And so I'm not afraid to say it at the risk of sounding toxically positive. I do think Sawyer Robertson is one of the best backup quarterbacks in this conference. In a conference that has become a very high level conference for quarterbacks again, starting quarterbacks. Sawyer Robertson is very solidly one of the best backups in this conference. And I won't say I know them all, but we've watched over the last few years. Everyone's quarterback gets hurt. He is one of the best. I really do. I believe in this kid's growth. That said, another point I made in there, he's going to get snaps this year. I don't hope for the starting quarterback to get hurt, but it happens all the time in college football, all the time. You've got to be ready. And Sawyer was ready last year, even though he knew it wasn't going to be pretty the first few games. And I think he's going to be ready again this year. And I think that is your quarterback in 2025. And I think he would still have a year of eligibility after that. He is your quarterback. Right now, it's DeQuan Finn's team. But heck, for all we know, I mean, Anu Solomon was the starter in 2017. For all we know, it could be the same scenario. And he bumped the backup from the year before into the backup position again. That was Zach Smith. And we eventually got Charlie Brewer out of it that year. I hope it's not like 2017, but there is precedent for this. And Jalen McClendon was also the starter in 2018. People forget that. So you will see some Sawyer Robertson this year. I hope for the case of DeQuan Finn not being hurt, I hope it's not a lot. But I think you will see some Sawyer Robertson, and he is your quarterback of the future. So, and I like the kid. I do. I saw some just good flashes from him in that West Virginia game last year that I think he is absolutely a competent guy who can step in here if something goes wrong in this season, whether DeQuan Finn gets hurt or just all, goes to heck, that he can step in there and help this offense move the ball and get the ball in the end zone. I really do. But for now, he's got to wait a little bit longer. Be patient. Be patient, young Padawan. They also opened up a new football facility at Baylor yesterday. It's pretty cool. We're going to tell you about it in just a minute. But first, my friends over at FanDuel. Okay, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Why would we not talk about it? Well, we have something a little different for you today because now through September 22nd, which would be the 30th anniversary of the TV show Friends debuting, look it up, I'm right. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on to download America's #1 sportsbook. Yeah, I don't know why I know that. I've seen every episode of Friends like 10 times, but it just doesn't hold up for me. Nothing political. I just don't think it's very funny anymore. But I've unfortunately seen just every episode. So it started on September 22nd of 94 and ended in May 6th of 2004. So that's it. That's it. I didn't pause it. I promise. Look it up. Wikipedia, Google, take it. I'm telling you. Anyway, Baylor football is what we're talking about. That's why you come to this podcast, not my opinions on 90s sitcoms. Although I could do a whole episode on that if you so choose. Drop it down in the comments below. What's your favorite? I like Seinfeld. Anyway, we could have saw that one coming. Baylor opened the Fudge Family Football Operations Center of Football yesterday. We did see that one coming. And as you could probably guess, it looks awesome. It looks really awesome. And, they showed the videos out there on social media. Obviously, it is state of the art. It's got some great Baylor moments in there. You have big photos on the wall of Mike Singletary and Jalen Petrie. And, of course, the McPlay, which I thought was so awesome to have the McPlay just plastered up on one of the walls. That might seem like a little thing. Every program has that now. But I think what's cool about Baylor the last 10 or 15 years, they have a lot of really good players and really good football moments that they can put on the walls of these things. And what I think the Fudge Center, not to get like so 10,000 foot view or so meta with it or whatever, not to try to make it out any more than it is, but the Fudge Center and some of the other projects that Baylor has done over the last few years, it still impresses me because we might not like to talk about this, but before about 15 years ago, Baylor did not have an illustrious athletics history. And the fact that, and it's not a big school on the grand scheme of things in Division I Power 5 sports. So I love that there's still such a great alumni base out there for this school that is willing to give back and make sure that Baylor can compete at the very top level of college athletics. And it is through facilities like the Fudge Center and the Foster Pavilion and even McLean Stadium and the bank and things like that. All of those contribute to making Baylor a competitive athletics program and one that is at the top of the Big 12 and a lot of sports that people care about. So I get amazed at that. And the fact that Baylor is turning things around in NIL is something that wasn't easy. I was on that trail of why isn't Baylor doing NIL? They're falling behind. I'm hearing the head coach talking about he doesn't want it, and that's not good for Baylor. And that was true, but to some extent, Baylor did NIL came at a bad time for Baylor because they were so busy building the campus and athletic facilities in the last 10 or 12 years that it was tough to turn around to those donors and say, oh, can we have a little bit more? I know we told you we needed these facilities so that we could compete in football and basketball and win these Big 12 championships. But what would really help us compete in basketball and football and win Big 12 championships is a little bit more money so we can pay the players. It was a tough situation. And so to see these facilities being really great and also the NIL turning around, I think is a really good sign for Baylor. So check out those videos if you haven't already. That's Baylor Athletics and Baylor Football on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, not wherever you get your podcasts like this one, but you could find it on YouTube. And while you're there, you can go find Locked On Baylor if you haven't found us there already, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. But I am cautiously optimistic. I'm getting there. I'm getting almost toxically optimistic about this Baylor football season. I'm a DeQuan Finn guy. I think he can solve a lot of the problems that this offense had, and I think he could cover up more deficiencies than Blake Shapen can. And maybe that's a backhanded compliment about this team, but it's true. I think he can patch up a lot of bruises that would have been there had Blake Shapen still been your quarterback. I think he covers a lot of that up. And if something goes wrong, I like Sawyer Robertson in the incumbent position. I really do. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think it should have been Sawyer? Did you think this was weird that it wasn't DeQuan Finn wasn't named before? Why do you think it took this long? Do you think it matters that these players need to rally around someone in fall camp? Drop that down in the comments below or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And be sure to like and subscribe. Leave that comment. It always helps the algorithm. Even if you say you hate Cam Stewart, whatever. I mean, get in line, brother. Grab a number. It's like a deli here. And thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We will have more reaction to this Baylor quarterback news. And also we're going to take a look at some of the other units on this team and how it might be the same or different from 2023. More of that coming up this week on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.